So you're growing at 200% year on year. Right? So
Yeah.
just help me understand, right? Just from a top of funnel perspective, where you're finding all of these, potential leads, right? What's been working for you in your industry?
We're just cold calling all day. And so we have cold a team of SDRs that have basically been doing cold calling in the past year. But before that, I did all the cold calling myself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the B2B SaaS Podcast. I'm your host, Upendra Verma, and today we have Robert Kirstuik with us. Hey,
Yeah.
Robert, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
All right, Robert. So
Good
let's get started and let's try to understand what your company does and why customers pay you money.
Yeah, sure. So we're an e-commerce and fulfillment platform made for food distributors and food wholesalers.
Got
Yeah.
it. Yeah, and just talk a bit more about it, right? About your product,
Yeah.
right? Just what you can do is just pick one of your customers and just perhaps an ideal customer of yours, and just help us understand how exactly you solve their problems.
Yeah, definitely. So our typical customer, is a food distributor or a food wholesaler that might be doing between, say, 10 and $100 million a year in revenue.
Mhm.
And usually food distributors that are about that size, they typically have their own team of sales reps that are really feet on the street. So those sales reps are going out into the market and trying to sell the food wholesalers or food distributors product to restaurants, grocery stores, and retailers. So really what those reps are trying to do is drive revenue, but they're a little bit more unique in that the way that they operate is they're typically maintaining most of their sales. So most of their sales come from accounts that they've been working with for years and years, and they don't really have much bandwidth to increase their sales volume. And that's because they're taking orders, often at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. when the service of the restaurant will finish. And then they have to wake up again, at 4 or 5 a.m., in order to make sure that all the orders are being entered properly at the production line, at the food distributor's warehouse.
Mhm.
So what that leads to is really a lack of ability to drive revenue in the later half of the day, because they've already been up for so long working the business otherwise. So what our software does is we basically embed directly into the food distributor's operations. So that way the sales rep, instead of taking orders at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. by phone call, voicemail, or text, they can actually get that input directly into Freshline, which really acts as an API layer that lives on top of the ERP for the wholesaler or food distributor. And so we interface directly with that ERP. We know all the business rules, and that really allows us to ingest that order without the sales rep needing to intervene. And as a result, the amount of time that they're spending maintaining their existing accounts dramatically goes down. And what we find is we're able to often increase by 50 to 100% the number of accounts that a sales rep can handle.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? So yeah, I want to understand about your customer base here, right? So like, how many paying customers do you have on your platform as of today?
Yeah, we're about 100.
100.
Yeah.
And how big these deals are, right? How much do they pay you on an average, right?
Yeah, so it depends. So we have three different pricing plans. So one is 400 a month per warehouse. Another one is 800 a month per warehouse, and then our third and final is 1,200 a month per warehouse.
And
Uh,
typically, how many warehouses do your customer have? I'm just looking at average numbers, right? I want to get a sense of how big these deals are so that I could understand your sales motion and all of it. Right? Is it
yeah,
$1,000 a year? Is it $10,000? Is it $100,000 deal? What's that sweet spot that you typically have?
yeah. So food distributors vary quite a bit. So we have some customers that only have one, right?
Mhm.
We have a good number that do, but we also have some customers that are, over 25 warehouses. So that there's a really big range in there.
Mhm.
And at our lowest tier, the smaller distributors that we work with, paying 400 a month per warehouse, they usually only have one.
Mhm.
But once you get up to that 1,200 a month plan, that's where a lot of our enterprise deals live.
Got it. Right. And what's the biggest deal that you have? Like, is it $50,000? Is it $100,000? I mean, you don't have to mention the specifics. I just want to understand, right? So that when I could understand your GTM motion better.
Yeah, totally. The biggest deal is really a six-figure
Got
deal.
it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's all I'm looking for. Right. So, like, how are you growing? Right, 12 months before, where were you? Like, how many customers did you had on your platform?
Yeah, 12 months ago, we were a lot smaller than we are right now. That's for sure. Like we've, over the last year, we've grown over 200%. We're planning on doing that again, or more this year. And yeah, I think in terms of how we've kind of gotten to where we are, like for the most part, it's been through bootstrapping and getting really
Yeah,
creative with.
I'll come back to your story in a bit. I really want to deep dive into it, right? So I just want to understand your past 12 months journey, right? Growth journey that you mentioned, right? So you're growing at 200% year on year, right? So
Yeah.
just help me understand, right? Just from a top of funnel perspective, where you finding all of these potential leads, right? What's been working for you in your industry?
Yeah, so we have a pretty big mix. We have contractors that we work with that script the web in a variety of different ways. But we also use things that are simple like Google, right? And we're just cold calling all day. And so we have cold a team of SDRs that have basically been doing cold calling in the past year. But before that, I did all the cold calling myself.
Mhm.
And really until about 4.5 months ago, I I was doing all of the sales deals myself. So just recently, we brought on our first account executive, but
Mhm.
before then, I was doing all the demos, all the closing, as well as all the onboarding. I was the
That's
only full-time business person on the team. Yeah.
that's pretty awesome, right? So just help me quantify this. I know it's going to be a bit harder and tricky, but I just want to get a sense of how it's working for you, right? For example, in the past 12 months, maybe let's say you've got 30, 40 new customers, right? Let's just say that, right? So like, where did they discover you? Is it just primarily cold calls? Is it maybe cold emails? Like, what's that one thing that's really been working for you, right? And maybe you can quantify it, like 50, 60% coming from that one channel. What's that channel?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so we actually have 25% of all of our inbound coming from SEO.
Okay.
Um, and the remainder is all from cold calling.
Okay,
Um,
it's
so,
interesting. And when you say SEO, is it your blog articles that you've written over years? Is that what's working?
uh, the blog helps, but that's more long tail SEO. I think that's really been helping us. I think the short term stuff has been mainly changes to our website and making sure that we're popping up on the right keywords.
Mhm.
Uh, so we've done a lot of work on that, and that actually surprisingly has been a huge driver for us. And it's not even blog; it's just making sure that our website is properly updated to the latest standards.
Like,
Yeah.
why does it work for you well? Like, aren't there enough competitors where who must just be doing all of these things? I mean, it's pretty hard to rank your own website for such keywords. I think if you pick any
Yeah.
market,
Yeah.
it's going to be very tricky. Like, why is it
Right.
working for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not going after the big keywords, right? Like e-commerce for business, right? We never focus on that, but we are focused on a very particular niche, food and in particular food distribution. Um, and I think when you start looking for that kind of company that's offering e-commerce in that realm, um, we're consistently up there.
Got it. Just talk about the cold calling, which is responsible for most of your new growth, right? So, like, what's your process? How does it work for you? Like, so in this digital age, right? I mean, cold calling, I mean, it's an age-old thing, right? But like, how does it even work? Like, where do you pick your numbers? Like, what do you do? Just walk us through that process, because it's an interesting journey.
Yeah, well, there's a number of different ways, right? So there are associations out there that you can get numbers from, but you can also get them straight from Google, right? Like I was saying
Yeah.
before. So I mean, we're able to just look up in a given geography where these wholesalers and distributors operate, and typically they're all kind of clustered in the same part of the
Yeah.
city. Usually the industrial part of the city where warehousing rent is a little bit cheaper, and yeah, we just, call up either the general number, or if we're able to get a better number, then we'll call through that number too.
And then how does the reply rates or conversion rates work here? Right? So when you pick a call, and when you just call somebody, you just start pitching your product right away. I mean, what happens after that? I mean, do they really care about your pitch, right? What really happens? Like, do you do any sort of maybe research about them? Like, what's just talk about the strategy that you exactly use to sort of get these deals done.
Yeah, I mean, we pre-qualify as much as we can. So we go on their website, we find out key bits of information, try to find the right person to talk to. And I think in terms of the call itself, we're able to once we're able to point in the right direction, I think we can kind of level set with our pitch in terms of who we're trying to talk to and why. Um, the biggest problem in our industry, I think, is the gatekeeper. Usually there's a front desk, employee,
Mhm.
whose, sole job on the phone, is to hang up on people.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, if we can't get past them, then
So
we're
do you
kind of,
really pitch on your first cold call itself, or your first call is just about getting to know each other, or like what happens on that first phone call?
yeah, we pitch on the first phone call.
Okay.
And I think we try to do it to gain trust, want to be honest about why we're calling, straightforward. And, you know, that often does lead to a bit of hangups, but, at the same time, when we call back again and again, they're less and less rude every time.
Mhm.
And so, you can find yourself, in our industry calling, between 8 and 16 times. And, that might be the number of times that you need to call in order to get to a demo.
You call the same person 8 to 16 times.
Yeah.
And like okay, that sounds a bit annoying to me. Like, would you call me 8 to 16 times if I just don't pick up your call? Is that what you're saying? Or
Well, yeah, not in a row, obviously, right? But we're talking about over, extended period of time. We might be looking at 3, 4 months.
oh, okay, okay. But
And
that's once they express interest and all, right?
it might be, or maybe we're just not able to get past the gatekeeper, and we just
Oh,
keep
okay.
calling the gatekeeper. And eventually they become kind, usually, because they know that there's a human on the other end, and we're earnestly trying to get in touch. But um, you know, and I think we try to scope out our sales development reps to make sure that they are kind of the kind of people that try to take that more human approach. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, it can go the other way
So
for you, right?
can you put a number on this? Like for every 100 calls or 100 prospects that you try to reach out with cold calling, right? So how many of them do really sort of take it forward from that first call?
Well, I mean, what I could tell you is, for every 100 dials that we make,
Mhm.
uh, we're usually able to book, uh, 2 to 3 demos.
Okay. So that's really a lot of hard work that you do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it. Right. So that's pretty amazing, right? So now what happens after that cold calling, right? Once somebody expresses interest, right? Talk about your sales cycle. I mean, I'm assuming you're the one who's been closing all of these deals all these years, right? So what happens in a sales cycle for you, right? How much time does it take? How do you overcome their, whatever problems that they have? Like just talk about the process.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess in terms of our background, so we actually ran a different company up until the pandemic.
Mhm.
It was under the same corporation. And so we actually just really released the most recent version of our software about a year and a half to 2 years ago, depending on where your market is. So we were kind of starting from zero about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, and so until about 4.5 months ago, I was the only sales rep. And so I think now, thankfully, we have a fantastic team member there that's been really incredible. I think in terms of a hire, and we've been able to really maintain that momentum without me being there.
Mhm.
But yeah, when it was only me, I think what I was doing was I was probably doing 2 to 3 demos before close. And we were getting about a 33% conversion rate from those demos. Um, and yeah, I would just take as many demos as I possibly could while also doing the onboarding and the customer support. And so I think I kind of reached my cap at about 20 demos in a week. Um, and at that point, I just knew I couldn't handle the volume, and I had to ratchet it back down um, until I built up sales a little bit more, and then we could have hired the
And then how much time did it typically take to sort of close a deal? Like how long was that sales cycle?
yeah, 3 to 5 months.
Three,
Yeah.
5 months. And you mentioned like those 18, 15, 20 conversations that you have with them back and forth to sort of close the deal.
Yeah, well, that's before booking the demo, and then the actual number of
Okay.
follow-ups post demo was probably another 12 touch points.
Okay. All right. That's pretty interesting. All right. So yeah, let's talk about the backstory here. Right? So you mentioned you just launched your product a couple of years ago, right? So how did you get your first couple of customers? I mean,
Yeah, so we were a seafood marketplace before. We basically were kind of a technology-enabled seafood distributor.
Mhm.
And so we ran the business for really about 4 years that way, and built that business up to about 4 million a year in revenue. Um,
How much was that? Can you repeat?
4 million a year in revenue
Okay.
in the previous business. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's the same corporation, but when the pandemic hit, we were delivering primarily only to high-end restaurants. And so what we ended up doing was taking a lot of our tech and repurposing it, rejigging it in a sense. And our first customers were actually our former competitors. Um, and so fun conversation to have. We kind of grew the company from there. But we had known these people in these companies for a while in the previous business, and so we had their contact. Maybe their opinion of us might not have been as happy about it, but I think when we kind of came to them with the proposition that we did with Freshline and kind of them using the tech that we had been using to compete, they were interested, and we were able to get a handful of deals that way.
Got it. And did you hit 7-figure revenue like as of today with this new company, or is it something that you're aiming for?
I think we will by the end of this year.
Got it. All right. So, and just talk about your team, right? So, how many folks in your team as of today?
Yeah. So right now we're 6 people.
6. And I guess you mentioned it's you, and then you've got 1 sales rep, and what about the rest of the folks?
Yeah. We have 1 person solely focused on onboardings and a bit of customer support, and then 3 software developers.
And you mentioned something called you bootstrapped this, right? So is that true? Like, didn't you raise any external funding so far?
Yeah, so we had raised in the previous business about $2 million seed round. But what we landed on when the pandemic hit is we already used a good portion of that because we had been planning on raising a Series A at the end of 2020. And so what we ended up doing was when we got to say the beginning of 2021, we were effectively running on fumes. And so we got really creative. The government of Canada had some great programs as well that we're able to benefit from. We've effectively got to a point where we've been able to hold the business together with effectively bootstrapping from where we were at the beginning of 2021.
And then what's the vision here? Like, how do you see yourself growing in the next 5 years? Like, what's the vision? What do you want to do with this company?
Yeah, we want to build a long-term sustainable business. And I should mention, we did raise a small amount of funds in 2022. But that was really just from our existing cap table, and it was in the low 6 figures in terms of the amount that we raised.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other than that, we're really effectively bootstraps. I would call it probably 80% bootstrap in terms of the amount.
That's still pretty amazing, right? So, and so what's the vision here? What are you looking at building here? It's like,
yeah, I mean, I think long term, what we want to build is a long-term sustainable company. And we're based out of Canada. We have a great team that we want to continue building out of here. And I think scaling that up, using profits and
so you don't want to raise any external funding going forward. You just want to scale slowly with your profits. Is that the vision here?
That's our focus right now. Yeah. And I think, we'd like to see how far we can take that. Yeah.
And what would you do with it in, let's say, 3 or 4 years if you manage to do that? Let's say you grow into $5 or $10 million, right? So what will happen after that? You want to?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends. I think we do have that cap table from the round with the previous business, and we kept everyone over on the cap table. So that's probably a conversation we need to have with that investor base, and and just kind of with ourselves too. As co-founders, I think my co-founder and I would need to figure that out. Yeah.
All right, Robert. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me. Hope you scale Freshline to much, much greater heights.
Thank you. Yeah, really appreciate your time.
Thanks for watching the B2B SaaS Podcast channel. I believe that the best way of building SaaS companies is by regularly talking to real founders who are out there building their companies. These founders have gained tons of insights during their journey, and I'm here to bring those to you. So if you want more such stuff, please make sure to subscribe to the channel here.